Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, Joey Mcguire evaluates his quarterbacks. The Chuffle Shuffle is engaged along the offensive line, and we may be breaking a tie within Locked On Texas Tech, going head up with the spread. Who emerged above water or below water? Chris or myself, you'll find out up ahead on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day every day, because it is your team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, and thanks to our friends at SimpliSafe for sponsoring today's episode with Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe. 24/7 monitoring. Agents capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like SimpliSafe, so visit simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege to learn more. Chris, that time of the week where we get to ponder, along with Joey Mcguire, some of what we saw over the weekend last time around. Of course, the Red Raiders fall in Manhattan, Kansas against the K-State Wildcats. We hear from head coach Joey Mcguire, and we'll get to some of his thoughts here on today's episode. And, of course, he was hitting on some of the things that I think are going to be most popular among some of those topics, conversations there that we've already touched on, and I know that Tech fans continue to touch on. Tech looks to bounce back on the road against Oklahoma State. I didn't know if it was possible personnel-wise, but I know that I was wishing maybe some of this was going on up front with the offensive line. So let's get right into an offensive line shuffle. Here's Coach Mcguire starting with the left side. Caleb Rogers in the left tackle position.
We bumped Ty Buchanan over to left tackle to back him up, and we'll kind of see how those two go. It's going to be a little bit strange for Ty. He's never played left tackle, but he's really athletic. And, he was a guy that we thought we'd push Monroe for playing time. Monroe's, played better and practiced better. So he's a guy that's been starting. But we're moving him over to kind of, see how he looks, and some of it, is making sure that, 91 is going to play in the NFL. And we've got to do a good job, whether it's we're sliding to him. You turn around this week, man, they got 5 or 6 guys that can flat out rush the passer. I mean, it doesn't get any easier.
Break it down, Chris.
Well, I don't know. This is just it's like the NC State series. You end up playing. You schedule that thing back in 2016. You end up playing them in what is probably their best team in, I don't know, 20-something years. But what is it about you having a really young and meshed together offensive line, which everybody knew was going to be an issue, and you were going against some of the best D lines that the Big 12 has had all throughout the league, and I don't know how long. I mean, try this one on. Oklahoma State starts 4 redshirt seniors on the defensive line. I mean, grown men going against just much younger guys trying to figure it out, and boy, it's just it just sucks. And but that's the hand you're dealt. But it's that you hear him kind of. So they're trying to figure out. And the scary thing is, Casey, is that coming into the year, Caleb Rogers and Weston Wright were probably 2 of the guys. Okay, we know what we're going to get, from these guys, but Caleb, he's been outmanned in several of these games. And, while maybe he needs to get better, maybe it's not his fault. It's just who he is. Maybe he's the best you've got. I think it's interesting to note that they're going to move Ty Buchanan over there. Or they have moved over there, and he's never played left tackle before. And he's
Terrific.
kind of that. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's like, and Ty's been, kind of that, and he's I think a redshirt freshman, I think is right. So again, more youth and inexperience, but you're just trying to find some answers. And it just, this is going to be the way this group is throughout the year. That's why probably didn't know it at the time, how big of a deal it would be. Although I think you and I both knew it, because when I first kind of mentioned it, you like called a timeout. And we're like, whoa, what did you just say? But Cole Spencer not being there, is troubling, just because he's out for the year and all those things. And that was a pretty big loss when you look back on it. And Michael Shanahan, one of your other transfers, has just not been kind of what you had hoped. Cade Briggs has not really been what you had hoped. So these are some of the examples of, but the flip side is Dennis Wilburn's been more than you would ever have hoped. But Monroe Mills has been good, and Ty Buchanan may get a shot at some point if some of this keeps up. But it's going to be tough sledding this weekend up front for sure.
Ty Buchanan, 6'6", 295, I believe a former top 100 Texas recruit. USC transfer, or am I thinking of a different guy?
No, I believe that's right. I think he's originally from Houston. And, and again, it's not that he won't be good. It's just, and Caleb Rogers is not inexperienced, but he hadn't been around here for just too terribly long. But bottom line is, this is just what you've got. And it's. Yeah.
Well, Chris, what are we after here? Are we after a backup left tackle? Are we after seeing if anybody can play that position in general, whether it's a starter or otherwise, or what's the pursuit here with this little shuffle?
You're after happiness, and you're after lots of things. And I don't.
It's too early in the day to go there, Chris.
It's you're just trying to find. I mean, remember, if we go back to I guess August, even all that. I mean, Joey kept going on and on, and he said, my challenge to Hamby is to make sure we've got the best 5 guys out there. I'm assuming that you have had that. Maybe you just kind of shuffle it up a little bit just to see kind of what else you get. I don't know, but you don't just miraculously find a stud left tackle in your group that wouldn't already have emerged or anything like that. So I think you're just looking for competition. You're looking to try to push each other, and maybe push Caleb and maybe Ty. I don't know. I don't know that I think that Ty Buchanan is going to be your next starting left tackle, but then again, right. I could see them trying that, because what else do you have to lose? It's just been a bit of a struggle. But part of it is just because again, you're going against grown men. You're going against a bunch of guys that, Baylor's front is phenomenal. West Virginia, that's the strength of their entire team, is their group right up front on the defensive line. They're not great everywhere else, but that is a legit defensive line that Neil Brown has got. So it's just, it just happens to be in a year where you're kind of deficient there, and you're younger and you're inexperienced and you don't have any chemistry. All the above. So maybe it looks differently a month from now, but right now that's what you've got.
Our pets' heads are falling off. You're just running down the list there. Good grief. Yeah. Nightmarish. Can I ask, and I know this may be a longer conversation than what the show is going to be here today, how did we get here from a personnel standpoint? Where did you have some washes, some misses, some injuries?
Yes. I think you
again going down the list, maybe checking everything.
I think the tail end of Cliff's tenure, this is the group that got hit the hardest on just not hitting on a lot of, and again, you typically are going to sign 4 to 6 offensive linemen every year, or try to. There's rare where you just sign a couple because you just feel really good about what you have. But for them to bring in 5 or 6 guys in the offseason, again, we've mentioned this on this show a bunch. They knew what the issue was. They knew, they tried to address it, and you didn't get everybody you wanted, but you went shopping, and again, you've added some guys that the one good thing about Cole Spencer getting dinged up this year is that he'll be he's already told them he'll be able to play for you next year, and he wants to do that. But I think that just kind of added to it. And I remember one of those last years. I think the last offseason that Matt Wells' staff, they tried to find an upperclassman transfer to bring in because they wanted him to take over, basically kind of be ready to go this year. And there just wasn't one that was worthy of being added. And the one or two they looked at, they didn't get. So they didn't want to just take a guy and waste a spot. So, it's just a combination of things. Part of this is why it's scary when you start changing coaches often, because these kind of things just compound and all that, and you just start switching it up. But that's I'd be willing to bet this thing will get better eventually. But it's just going to take some time. Offensive line is just one of those positions, man. You need them in the weight room a lot. You need to grow them up. You need
men.
Yeah, you exactly
Adults.
Right. on the line of scrimmage, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can't go find a Miles Cole all the time on defensive line. You can't go find
Right.
the Cole Spencers all the time. But anyway, this is just kind of where we're at right now.
Well, I know we're all rooting for Stephen Hamby. I like Stephen Hamby, a fan of Stephen Hamby.
And in Casey, real quick, like two things I forgot. I mean, Jack Anderson leaves early, and then don't forget you had Dawson Deaton left early too. So that's also what kind of adds to the equation as well. Which you would have had those guys for extra years, and they both declared and left some college eligibility and headed for the NFL, which is their right. But you asked how we get here. I wanted to make sure
Right.
I didn't want to forget to mention that.
I swear there's like a 9-foot guy from Wellington at one point too, and now he's traveling with the circus or something. I don't know.
And he didn't care for football much. And so that's yet another kind of miss right there. But yeah, to your point,
I actually took this idea from a listener, a supporter of Locked On Texas Tech, Chris, dyed in the wool Red Raider. Do we go Linwood here? If it's not any better, like the next first half at the Jones, can you go out there at halftime, get on the PA, tell Curtis Parrish, I need the mic. Can anyone stand in the way? There's got to be a man somewhere with eligibility in the stands that could just stand in the way to a more consistent degree than what we've gotten so far. I mean, I'm really kind of taken aback by how inconsistent that position has been, or just consistently poor, because as you just alluded to, we're not talking about an inexperienced guy in Caleb Rogers. I've mentioned it a couple of times already this week. Second most offensive snaps on the team last year, and I think over 20 starts now in his career. So where you at, dude? There's still we're really kind of scrambling to try to shake something up, right? Just this little shuffle here we're seeing this week. I don't want to say scrambling, but you're searching.
Well, no, I mean, you this is the point where you have who you have, and you can't go, you just have to push each other and try to get better, and you have to scheme it up to where, you play call your way out of it, or you shuffle the deck a bit. I mean, there's really nothing else because those 4 redshirt seniors are staring you in the face come Saturday at about 2:35, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that aspect of it.
What's the book say? Hey, what's that book say about that? Book. See if that bad boy's got any answers. Because
that's right.
Yeah, as Coach Mcguire alluded to, it gets no easier this week, and man, that wasn't just coach speak. We will get to coming up dead ahead the breakdown, and I mean breakdown on everything involving the guy or guys behind the offensive line. We'll talk evaluation of Donovan Smith. We'll talk Baron Morton opportunity and practice during the week. And we'll talk the immediate future of Tyler Shuck, all via comments from head coach Joey Mcguire. Coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, it's our friends at SimpliSafe. And look, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe home security to protect their home. Because why? Get this, it's real complicated. Your safety is the only thing that matters. While other people are tricking it up, SimpliSafe is still focused on you. You're the priority. Cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. SimpliSafe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. So customize today the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at SimpliSafe.com/LockedOnCollege. That's SimpliSafe.com/LockedOnCollege and save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit SimpliSafe.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Thanks for joining us on Locked On at Texas Tech, your team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. Do subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts. Our families appreciate it. Trying to keep them going hungry this winter. Chris has a child on a college campus, for crying out loud, so subscribe on YouTube, please. It's going to a good cause. Higher education in Chris's case, and I just like to think I'm learning every day, so it's kind of higher education in my case too for other reasons.
And I'm actually having to pay for it. I don't think my loans will be forgiven.
That is true. That's a great point. We just left a moment ago an offensive line conversation, a little bit of a shuffle, and I don't want to make too much out of it. I don't know if we're going to see anything as far as the majority of the snaps and who's getting them, but something to note, as Coach Mcguire noted that. And so we wanted to advance then beyond that to the guys behind the offensive line. You didn't beat Texas this week, so we got to go back to questioning the quarterback position. I think it was 4-1 in the turnover margin, as you'll hear coming up from Coach Mcguire, was not all at the feet of Donovan Smith. But when you have the day like you do and you come up short on the road against Kansas State, those questions kind of return. And so Coach Mcguire began the quarterback conversation with thoughts on an evaluation, basically, of Donovan Smith at this point in the year.
It's something that we talk about constantly. I've been proud of Donovan. I mean, I think he's leading the Big 12 in passing. He's given us a chance to be in a lot of games. He's a big guy that will step up and make some courageous throws. He's getting a lot of criticism, by a lot of different people. And the thing that I told the team yesterday is let's go back and let's look at that and who should have some of that criticism along with Donovan, and it's going to start with me. And Kitley's going to be the first one to tell you it's going to start with him, with protecting him with different play calls. But, the first interception, he gets hit on the arm as he's throwing it. He didn't hit himself, and so the criticism lies with him being clean in the pocket. And that goes with play calls. That goes with the offensive line, all that. So I've been really proud of Donovan. I've been proud of his response.
And Coach Mcguire went on to talk a little bit more about Donovan, but also to kind of factor in maybe the potential involvement of Behren Morton. Let's not forget there was a scenario a couple of weeks ago where it apparently was kind of a competition during the week, at least as far as rep allotment between Morton and Smith. And so Coach Mcguire touched on the possibility of Behren Morton and pivots back to Smith.
See how the week goes as far as how comfortable we are. It's one of the deals of some of the stuff that you are dealing with. What you're dealing with, and some of the stuff is unknown. And are we ready to kind of search that unknown yet to make those changes? I'm trying to think of the right words to say on that, but I think Behren will come out and have a great week, and I'm hoping that we have a good plan to play both of them. But I think the tough thing, I talked to Donovan Saturday night, gave him a call, and, because he's down, man. That kid wants to win, and he's a great kid. He's got very high character. I told him, I said, there's no position that will get more praise unwarranted than the quarterback position and the head coach position, and there will be no position that gets more criticism unwarranted than the starting quarterback. And that's just the nature of the beast. You chose to play quarterback, and you're a really good one. And I think he's going to be a guy that plays on Sundays, and so you just got to learn it now, and you got to find ways to get better. And we got to find ways to be better as a program to help him be better. And then if Behren's in there, we got to do the same thing with Behren.
First, Chris, I hear a coach having a player's back. Just first. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, what else are you hearing?
Yeah, I think what you hear is we need everybody around him to be better too. Like, this isn't all his fault, And I don't know, Casey, if Donovan is or ever will be, and I think that's what makes really good quarterbacks is they elevate everybody around them. I don't think that Donovan is to that point yet. I also think you're hearing Joey saying we're we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're going to stick
Yeah.
with what we've been doing, trying to grind and tweak and get better and stick with our process. We're not going to just halt everything and totally knee jerk, I think is the term that he used. But, because the cast around him is pretty good. It's okay, but there's not, you're not terrible anywhere, but you're also just not somebody around him that can really bail you out. And that's typically falls on the quarterback. You need to make, because what's fascinating is you look at his numbers, leads the Big 12 in passing. He's played one more game than Spencer Sanders has. So that goes without saying, but he 11 touchdown passes, which leads the Big 12, tied with Spencer Sanders. And again, he's got 5 more interceptions though than Spencer Sanders does, but those are the two, but he's having to work really hard for that. And it's yards per attempt. It's a grind. There's nothing that's coming easy with this offense. And I think that Zach looks at it from a standpoint of, is he really going through all of his reads and hitting what needs to be there? Because there's some things that he probably could be attacking and it would be easy for him. And that's still a bit of a process, but I don't get the sense that they're ready to pull the plug on Donovan yet. And I think you absolutely hear him being defended there. So I don't, anything else that stuck out to you that you heard from Coach Mcguire talking about this, I guess, this position in general?
Well, I just think he went, I think every player in the country and every player's family or support system in the country has to be happy to hear a coach speaking about a player like that whenever he's taking some arrows, because some of what Coach Mcguire is saying there is based on all the realities you're describing. Like, well, hell, everybody's got to be better because we just lost a game. So it's not just on Donovan, and that's the truth. But there are also moments where I think I can certainly identify a coach going out of his way to defend a guy that's been fighting for him. And I think Donovan Smith has. And so Coach Mcguire is going to do that as well. And I think most coaches or all coaches in just about all situations should do that. You certainly are not going to castigate a guy in public. Maybe you don't go out of your way to defend him, but I like what I hear from Coach Mcguire from that perspective there. And, I guess I would also say that that's a smart man that is able to nail what he said there and saying the ones that get the most credit unduly are the quarterback and the head coach. And the ones who get the most fault unduly is the quarterback. And then he moves on. He doesn't include the head coach in that second mention. And I guarantee you there are coaches out there that would screw that up because they're probably thinking it in their heart. But that's a wise man not to say that or to phrase it that way and to nail it. I just appreciate the eloquence there in that moment from Joey Mcguire.
So it's what he didn't say that you really took from that. Yeah, that's well said.
Of all the above, I think. So, you may not agree with what he's saying, and you may still be wishing, hey, I wish Morton was a guy getting a call this week. Well, I respect the stance or the approach, I guess.
And what's interesting is that you go play a ranked team at their place, and everybody is very frustrated and angry about you not getting a win. So I'm trying to, and
you
it's
did what Vegas said you were going to do, basically.
Yeah, and I think what's fascinating here is that the NC State game and the Kansas State games are you're just ever so close to where you're kind of being teased that you could have won these games, or you could have if a few things go right or wrong, but they also could have gone way sideways too. And we've seen the sideways part a lot. And so I don't know, do you walk before you can run kind of thing? Do you, I don't know. And eventually you need to figure out a way to beat a good team on the road. But it's just funny how last week, there's a lot of, I don't hear any of those Donovan doubters now. And now you're back to, tar and feather. And
and we love you for it. Ride that roller coaster because we're strapped in with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. But that's just the nature of the sport. Yeah. And I can't remember.
He nails that description too, Chris. That was another part I liked. He just totally nails the description of this is the nature of the position.
Yep.
This is the so that's all just good general football perspective there for anybody listening.
And I also can't remember a year, and maybe it changes as we go along here, but I can't ever remember a year where there's just been this much parity, not just in the Big 12, but really in the country in general. Sitting there watching somebody like Georgia and Missouri just takes it to them for about 55 minutes. It's a fun year, but it's going to be, I talked to somebody today. I'm like, man, it was one of those guys on the staff. And I'm like, man, it's fun for fans and people like me, because you don't know what you're getting on a Saturday, but I bet it drives you guys crazy, just the ups and downs and how even everything is, because every little thing matters. And if you take a few of those, because, one interception, he gets hit. Okay. And so, that's maybe an offensive line issue. We can debate whose fault it was. The other one maybe shouldn't have counted because of a whistle being blown. Did he hear that? Should he have thrown it anyway? That's all can be debated, but It's just a few of those things here or there. And you just wonder, Taj Brooks was a legitimate fumble and all that. Anyway, it's just, but this is where you're at. His numbers are good, but people just want to win. So,
and the QBR stinks. I have to mention that because we had a YouTube commenter asking why nobody was talking about the dead last QBR. Mostly because I don't know what the hell QBR is. It doesn't mean anything to me. I can see with my eyes 4-1 turnover margin, the things that stink. I'm not saying it's not worth.
And the final score.
Right, in the final score. That's just why I'm not talking about it, because I couldn't explain it to you. And
it's some weird formula.
I don't need it to tell me somebody stinks or not. To those who are into it, kudos to you, I suppose. Hope you're getting enough vitamin D. Check out the sunlight every once in a while. But I would also say right there on that subject, Chris, before we move on, and I'm so excited too, because we're reviewing Locked On Texas Tech goes against the spread coming up next. But before we move on, you're probably seeing like I am. And if you're scouring some things like this as a college football fan, Texas Tech is keeping some better statistical and analytical company among teams nationally now than they used to. And as recently as like the last 2 years. It's only translated into a 3-2 record right now. But if you look at some of these, graphs of kind of an ebb and flow of defensive success or lack thereof, or offensive success or lack thereof for a team and where that places them within the pie. If you're in Georgia's neighborhood, there's something you're doing that's okay. Now, football wins and losses are not all broken down, obviously, statistically. We play the game because there are things that you can't predict. There are things that may never happen again, but it happens that moment. So I'm not going to be beholden entirely to that altar of analytics and things like that. But it's out there if you're interested in those things. Texas Tech, I think, is doing some things better as a football team, more soundly or maybe more consistently. But, man, we're on that pendulum right now with just wild swings, because the things that maybe you're not doing so well are in that big play category, like turnover margin or getting your quarterback rocked. So that is, we touched on it yesterday and you just mentioned it again. That's part of why it's so frustrating, because it's feast or famine. Part of that means you're eating at some points, and that gives you a bigger appetite. We want more. We want more. Under Matt Wells, you go to Kansas State, you lose it by 25. I'm not losing a minute of sleep, because what else were you going to go do? But you show some resiliency and some capability, and you're thinking, I want a little more. I want a little more. Maybe we'll get it. We want this to be a team now that gets better as the season goes on, like well-coached teams do. So only time will tell. Before we're out of here, we will tell you what happened with Locked On Texas Tech goes up against the spread. Did we break the tie? We'll discuss coming up next. But first, back to our friends at Jay's Salsa Company, and it is spreading across the nation, Chris. You're talking about last time around hearing from some folks, Tennessee. We heard from folks in the Carolinas. I know now Colorado Springs is on the map, and we love hearing from you. So keep letting us know where you are now experiencing the Jay's Salsa life, because the reviews are in and they're raving, Chris.
Hot, mild, but bottom line, it's red and black jar, man.
That's right.
Get you some. jsalsacompany.com.
That's right. And I've been doing a little taste test.
I saw
Cowan household.
I saw those granite countertops and those Jay's, jars of salsa sitting right there in that little fancy basket of chips from the picture that you texted me, and I'm like, oh, my man's getting after it.
Well, part of it was green screen. That was green screen granite. It's actually just cardboard in an alley. But Jay's Salsa made it feel like the Taj Mahal. Let me just tell you.
There you go. Yes.
I love both, but I see, Chris, why when I went to a local grocery store, I took the last jar of hot off the shelf because some people are built that way. Maybe not everybody, but ooh, that hot. Woo! And it was the last jar on the shelf. So I hope they're getting stocked back up because I'm going to be back soon. Taste testing every day just to make sure that I still love it every day. The results are conclusive. I do. I love it every day. I am operating right now. My body's about 70% salsa. Had a big glass of water right before this. So maybe 30% water, 70% salsa, which I think is actually a fairly vibrant mix. But yeah, appreciate all of you we've heard from all across the USA who have been getting down with our friends at Jay's Salsa. Red Raider family recipe in the making, 20 years. And they're not making it complicated. Their only priority, fresh ingredients. They will ship anywhere in the U.S. at jsalsacompany.com or in over 90 stores in Texas and New Mexico. Most United supermarkets, Albertsons supermarkets, Market Streets. And if you are blessed by God to be in the vicinity of Lubbock, Texas, USA, or you can catch a ride, you can find it at H-E-B, or as Chris mentioned, online, ship anywhere in the U.S. at jsalsacompany.com.
And it especially goes good on a breakfast taco. I've been told this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just
do with that information what you will.
Absolutely.
Okay. So actually, like putting it on something is an idea, not taking it just straight out the jar like I.
Yeah, right. With a spoon. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering why I was getting some of those funny looks. But no one will salsa shame me. I'm back to chugging jars of Jay's Salsa after the show, and you can do it with me tomorrow if you've got a jar at your crib anywhere in the U.S. All right? Get down with it right now. Find yourself there with an order on your doorstep in no time at jsalsacompany.com. You got it. It's Locked On Texas Tech, your team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Casey Cowan with the only Chris Level. If you're watching on YouTube, you see me there engaged in a mild vibe. That's just a 500 vibe because I only won as many as I lost this weekend as we dive into the results of Locked On Texas Tech goes against the spread. Chris, it really was adventurous for both of us. There were some sweated out moments like we anticipated, but my 3-3 feels a lot better when I'm looking across at that character building 1-5. You're going to be a better man, I think, next time around.
Can somebody ship Trey Wolf to Ames? I mean, what are we doing, fellas? I mean, Kansas maybe in fact be a paper tiger. They should have gotten beat, but you can't make a field goal, man. And so that cost me. And then I doubted Nick Saban. Shame on me. Yeah,
I was surprised you went that way, dude.
It was a big man. It was a big number, and I just thought Arkansas coming off of an emotional loss versus A&M, I thought they'd kind of bounce back. And here's what screwed it up. They did like a red out, okay, at Alabama, and it's not really red; it's like crimson. What are Alabama's colors? I mean, it felt like a home game for Bama. Man, it's like they're looking around like roll tide. They're like, oh, woo, pig suey and all that business. But anyways, and Bryce Young goes out, and they still run away from him.
I know. I was feeling a little bit nervous about my prediction of not only a win, but maybe cruising until the game progressed. And then it was Nick Saban.
We both missed the other ones, though. Those were just the two that you got right. Yeah, we neither one of us saw TCU. Oklahoma must be just god awful.
Now, don't try and enjoy my company in these losses. I'm not done talking about these ones that I won and you lost yet. Let's not get to
okay. I was trying to move on.
I did try to roll with Kansas comfortably. I talked about some disrespect, so I wasn't quite all the way right on that one. But yeah, Chris took the Cyclones -3. I took the Jayhawks the other way. Chris took the Razorbacks +17.5. I took Alabama the other way. So we split that one. We were both correct with the Longhorns over West Virginia. -9.5 was the number there for Texas. And then we were belly up with NC State Clemson. Maybe as surprising to me, Chris, as what we saw in Fort Worth. I got to be honest, that I really thought NC State, maybe not a winner, but was going to make it much more interesting in the late stages. But really, who am I kidding, man? Fort Worth blew the doors off of everything, I guess, surprise-wise, right?
Yeah, in NC State, they had some chances there, but they're just not. They're really good at some things, but they're not. If they get into some sort of track meet or some sort of, there's just not a ton of offense there. I mean, they throw it to, the same receiver and then have those running backs and all that. Their defense is obviously really good, but that was an unbelievable environment in Death Valley. But I just thought they would. I thought this was kind of their time, and it just wasn't meant to be. So it's still Clemson's league. Shocker.
Yep. No doubt about it. Did we learn anything about Sonny Dykes, or is this just all about Oklahoma flopping?
I think you're learning that TCU is going to be a handful, but we're giving Kansas State and TCU a lot of credit here, okay, for hammering Oklahoma, but maybe it's an Oklahoma problem. Because their defense looks just lost. And I think TCU.
That's amazing, by the way.
It was like 600 plus on the yardage. So many busted coverages, guys just running wide open. And credit to TCU and the fighting Riley family, because old Garrett took up for Big Brother Lincoln. Don't be smirching the fighting folks, the Rileys from Muleshoe, man, because they,
That's the wrath of Muleshoe poured upon your head right there.
Over and over again.
Yikes.
And it's good to see that TCU was reprimanded and fined for them storming the field, so they can join that elite club.
Now, I'm assuming that's sarcasm. Did that happen? Because I didn't actually see that.
It did. Yes, okay. It did happen. The Big 12 is they've gone the wrist slap, and I'm guessing Kansas is going to get the same.
And didn't the Frogs top 300 yards rushing too? Didn't they?
Oh, I believe so. I think maybe in the second quarter. Yeah, like alone. Yeah. But Max, the point about TCU is that Max Duggan has just played phenomenal, and that's the part that scares you. And he's really doing it by throwing it, because he's been really pretty much of a runner up until this point in his career. And that part, Kendre Miller, their running back, has been really good. So, but Oklahoma's a mess. And then you go look at Oklahoma's injury situation. They could be missing somewhere between 4 to 6 starters this weekend, including quarterback Dylan Gabriel. And I can tell you for a fact, their backups. They've got what's the Booty kid? I forgot his like Spencer Booty or
General.
General Booty. There you go. Yeah, General. How can I forget that?
No, honey. On the show.
Well played. Touche.
She sees a salute and just.
So they're that could be a disaster this weekend again. But yeah, the first time Oklahoma and Texas will play this coming up weekend, and neither have been ranked since 1998.
Good grief. Yeah. That's why it's on ESPN Plus, I'm assuming.
Probably. Well, no, it's going to be on ABC, but game day's not there. Yeah, game day's not.
Alabama A&M this weekend as well. Is that right?
Yes. You have the big giant, Jimbo and Nick Saban,
Red River Shootout, and game day is where?
And it's in Lawrence, Kansas. Yeah.
Boo freaking who?
Yeah.
Good grief. They're going to drag these television ratings down in Dallas. Yeah, I just get the hell out of how many times am I going to say that on the show? I think I've told each of them to get the hell out of here at least once on previous episodes. Here's one for both of you. Get the hell out! No, honey. Again, still just on the show. I'm sorry. This game has always just chapped my ass, to be very frank, Chris, because you've got the two most well-funded programs, the Goliaths of the conference, who miss out on what I guess is one of the most difficult road games in the conference, to go meet up by the friggin' Tilt-A-Whirl and play at a fair. For what reason, I have no idea. But they
like seeing that.
Times.
They like seeing that giant. Was it Big Tex?
This has always driven me crazy.
Howdy, folks.
How about these two guys? Yeah. Oh, it's loud. Oh, it's whatever. Scared to make a trip to Austin. Scared to make a trip to Norman. This has just bothered me forever. So I hope it's just a dud of a ball game. I hope everyone gets cotton candies that are like 6 months old. They're off the old truck. And they didn't remember that none of the candied apples either had worms in them. This is what I wish for you on your way to the SEC. Was that too harsh to wrap up the show?
No, not at all. Yeah, I used to watch that game and wish the ball would just go flat at midfield and everybody went home with a tie. But
they should have to ride the tilt-a-whirl before the game, halftime, between quarters, whatever.
Somebody's getting their third loss in early October, and these were kind of rumored to be playoff teams, Big 12 title contenders, and all these different things. But somebody's getting that third L, man. And if you're OU, you're going to go to 0-3 in the league. I mean, do me a Big 12 power ranking and try to argue that Oklahoma doesn't deserve to be last. I mean, I dare you.
I will not do that, although I don't want to give away the entirety of my Big 12 power rankings. We probably won't do that. That's coming up later on in the week, and we'll ask you later on today, after making Locked On Texas Tech your first listen, to make Locked On Big 12 your second listen with Josh Neighbors right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Enjoyed it as always, Chris. Thanks, my man. We'll see you on the other side.
Keep hope alive, people.
You got it. And subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast for the only Chris level. I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks for joining us once again on Locked On Texas Tech.